try that, dude.
Yeah.
That's one of the only things I haven't tried to get.
Your new special was really hilarious. I really loved that joke about how people are too uptight nowadays.
ChatGPT would never say that. People aren't uptight enough these days. Dude, I was fucking with ChatGPT the other night, and I simply asked it, give me a list of famous comedians from Mississippi. And it said, Dave Chappelle. And I said, what? Dave Chappelle's not from Mississippi. And it said, oh, I'm sorry for my mistake. Dave Chappelle has spent a lot of time in Mississippi. And I replied, no, he hasn't. And it replied, I'm sorry for my mistake again. Like, it's just, it doesn't work.
That's funny. They call it hallucinating when it does that, too. It'll just, like, spit out wrong information. And like, oh, it was hallucinating. I'm like, that's not the way I hallucinate, you know? No. It's funny that I think Chappelle doesn't he have that fried chicken joke about, I think that might be in Mississippi, so that's probably why it just is
that's like, probably
Dave exactly Chappelle spent a lot of time in Mississippi. It's like, nah, he wrote a joke about Mississippi. Yeah. That's not the same.
Yeah, that's probably the last time he was in Mississippi.
All right, well, we're live to YouTube now, and the way this will work is I'm going to count down and start the show. You probably aren't going to hear the music because for some reason my recording software doesn't let Zoom hear the music. So it'll be silent for about 15 seconds, and then we'll come in and introduce you. And then we will just talk about whatever pops up and all your specials and all that kind of stuff. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, fellas, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. That music can only mean one thing. It is time for the OpenMicersPodcast. My name is Jason Robbins.
I'm Jacob Craig. And guys, listen. I want you guys to listen, okay? Guys, I'm fucking... Hold on. Guys, I'm fucking yoked about this podcast right now, guys. I'm fucking beyond excited about this podcast. Because we have a legit fucking New York comedian in this place. We have a comedian so legit. He has a fucking bomb-ass special on YouTube. He's a regular at the Comedy Cellar. He is one of... Look, I'm not exaggerating when I say this, okay? Okay? And I'd never say this to his face. I feel like he's one of the funniest people in New York right now. And if you don't know him, you should know him. Because he shouldn't be on this podcast. He should be on way better podcast than this one. And I would never tell him that to his fucking face. I would never tell him that, but I'll tell you guys, because you're dedicated listeners to this podcast. It's the one and only Matt Ruby. How you doing tonight, man?
Oh, man, what an intro. ChatGPT is really doing a great job writing intros now, I gotta say.
Yeah, that was all just AI driven. I admit none of it.
I appreciate it. No, those are kind words. Thank you for having me, fellas. Good to be here.
What's crazy is I'm looking at the video right now, and we look almost exactly the same.
Oh, that's scary.
We're like such an insult to Matt Ruby.
I know. I need a Pac-Man sign behind me just to really fit in.
Dude, Jason saying that you guys look just remotely similar means you need to just stop whatever you're doing right now and do the opposite.
Well, I kind of get it. Like, I think all bald, middle-aged white dudes look alike, too. I mean, like, we just got a thing. Like, so sometimes I'm just walking around my apartment, I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh, my God, who's that narc here, you know?
Yeah. Fucking Dollar General Jason Statham broke into my apartment. What's going on?
So tell us about what is the first thing I want to know is what's the comedy scene in New York like now after the pandemic and everything? Is it kicking? Is it pumping?
Yeah, it's doing great. A lot of tourists are back in town recently, so that's been helpful. But yeah, I mean, we had a rough, year or so, and then I think we were one of the first things to come back, though. I think, like Broadway and some of the other stuff, offices, like they're still like kind of piecing it all together. But comedy was kind of first man up and like back on the front lines doing shows, people wanting to see shows. I think also we have like, younger audiences than Broadway. So, pandemic stuff and masking was less of an issue. But no, I'd say it's full throttle. I think it's like a really good time for comedy right now.
Yeah. I feel like there's not a way that you can really stop comedy in New York because there's so many different places to do comedy that you could just keep it a secret and just be like, hey man, we're doing a show down here. You want to come laugh
I
real
mean,
quick?
yeah, we were doing parks and rooftops and all kinds of strange things. You know, you just got comedians need to get up on stage somewhere. So we
Yeah,
were
man,
making it work
drive-in
somehow.
theaters.
Yeah, that was not ideal, but you know, whatever. We were all nothing was ideal during pandemic, so you know, you made it work for a while, but definitely good
Yeah.
to be back in a room with actual people.
Dude, I'm surprised more of you guys didn't come down to the South during the pandemic because we were fucking wide open, like single mom on Valentine's Day, just begging for it, dude.
I think
We stayed wide open.
a lot of people did. There's definitely like you know a flux of people going to you know Austin and Miami and touring around. But you know something it's tough. It's tough for everyone to go on the road to the exact same places at the same time. So you know I think
True.
there's some amount of bottlenecking that was bound to happen, and you know some people were more paranoid about pandemic than others. So you know everyone had to follow their own path, I guess.
Let me tell you, all y'all skipped Mississippi. We didn't get none of y'all to come to this motherfucker. We were doing shows like we didn't shut down. We shut down for like a week. And then after a week we were like, wait, this is fake news media. We can just fucking do comedy shows. But no one was coming down here, so we were selling out. Like I produced a roast battle that reached like a capacity to where we were scared the fire department was going to come by because there's just so many fucking people that want to come see a show because no one's doing anything.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, it's like a different psyche too. It's also like when you talk to New Yorkers, you got to remember, like we were the first to get hit, and no one knew what was happening, and it was crazy. And there was hospitals like with refrigerator trucks parked outside to keep all the dead bodies in there, and like everyone here is on top of each other. So it just bred like a whole different mentality around it that I think for a lot of people it took them a while to like get out of that like mindset. But also I think you know you could make an argument. It's pretty good reasoning when you're like you know at the epicenter of like you know all these people dying and everything going sideways. So I think in retrospect, yeah, I feel like we probably could have done a lot more, but at the time, no one knew what the hell they were doing. So yeah, I guess New York just needs to be more like Mississippi is the real lesson here.
Don't.
Oh
do that.
yeah, dude.
Don't do that.
No, don't do that.
If only we were as open-minded and tolerant as people in Mississippi.
Because you know
we could be on the vanguard, on the cutting edge.
That is what we are known for, is all the open-mindedness here.
Exactly.
Dude, I wanted to talk to you about that actually. So I was listening to the newest episode of We Might Be Drunk, who is hosted by friends of yours. They were talking to Nimish Patel this week about like the hot bar shows that used to be in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious about like the difference between bar shows in New York and literally the rest of the entire country, because bar shows are usually the worst you can do. But it seems like in New York, you have some pretty banging bar shows.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's plenty of bad ones, too. There's definitely some good ones. Yeah, him and Michael Che used to have a cool show in Greenpoint that they did. And even that, though, would be, you know what it is? I think in New York, when you do a bar show, it's a show exclusively, almost always, for people who actually live in New York. Whereas when you're doing clubs, it could be a lot of tourists and stuff. So sometimes it could be fun to do a show where it's like everyone's like a New Yorker and you all, you know, are kind of on the same wavelength that way. But also those crowds can be pretty tough. A lot of those bar shows, it's not necessarily like a hot room. It's you gotta work for your laughs, and you know, sometimes the audience is like, yeah, we're cool and smart and we're artists. We could do what you're doing, you know. Just so there's a lot of like that don't impress me much attitude, if I can quote Shania. But yeah, I think the ideal is like to be doing a mixture of like bar shows, clubs in the city. Getting on the road and kind of playing different rooms and for different types of people. And then if you've got a joke that works in all those settings, then you know you're really onto something.
Yeah, for sure. I almost think it's important to do bar shows like that, or maybe even clubs in smaller markets where like you're not guaranteed to do well, even with jokes that are guaranteed to do well.
Yeah, I think it's like a little bit of like a knife fight mentality. Like Bill Burr's talked eloquently about like doing crappy rooms and how it made him figure out how to get an audience and grab them and keep them. And I think there's definitely value in a tough room. It can be annoying if you're just in like some impossible room, where like people want to watch the game and you turn the TVs off on them, and then like, why are you doing this to me? Like that can be a rough ride. But yeah, I think any show. Like, I think there's just sort of like this Maslow's hierarchy of comedy, where it's like, at the very least, you need like a microphone that works and people need to be paying attention, and like some sort of like base level of like, we know how to run a room and run a show and the people are paying attention. And then for as long as you got that, I'm happy to kind of do any show anywhere. And then I think it's kind of like a good exercise. But yeah, every once in a while you wind up just doing a room where you're like, well, no one is ever going to do well here because you guys don't know how to produce a comedy show.
Yeah, we run across that a lot down here.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I've run across that at my own comedy shows that I've produced. I don't know how to. You need a microphone for this, dude? What the fuck?
Yeah, that's how you learn sometimes. Like, oh, pinball machines right outside the comedy show isn't a great idea. Now I know.
So what's your strategy when you come across a pretty tough bar crowd where they're just not paying attention to you? Do you just kind of put your head down and get through the set, or do you try to get them to pay attention to you? Like, what's your strategy?
Yeah, I mean, like, ideally, for me anyways, like, I like to be able to do material and like jokes that I have and have that work. If it's like that's not landing and it's not working, then you got to switch to plan B, which is like just sort of be in the room in the moment and talk to people, maybe do crowd work, maybe comment on how the show sucks. If there's a table that's being annoying or in some way, just kind of like explain why they're being annoying. And obviously you're trying to make all this funny, but like you can't get to funny until you actually have everyone like in unison paying attention and locked in. So if you don't even have that, then that's kind of like your first goal. And then from there you can kind of try to build towards funny.
Yeah. Dude, all the bar shows around here too, it's like the people that come to some of these shows just have the most audacity. So I remember I was producing a show one time, and Jason, I don't know if you remember this or not. It was at the Love Shack, which is just one of the worst fucking venues I've ever been to in my entire life.
To be some of the best sets I ever had was at that.
Of course you would, because you're horrible at comedy. But anyways, back to my story. No, I was opening the show, so like the first 5-10 minutes of the show, and I had shut everything off, shut everything down, and I had positioned the stage to where it's in the path of the dartboard so that no one can play darts. And then someone decides to just come play darts while I'm in the path of the dartboard doing comedy.
I was not there for this.
Whizzing darts in front of my fucking face. And like, what do you even do in that moment? Like, I had to just move the sound equipment because I can't stop this guy from playing darts. He'll kill me with darts.
Yeah, always tough when your heckler has a weapon.
Yeah, right, dude. I need to start bringing darts on stage with me to chuck out in the fucking audience when they're not paying attention.
Yeah, whatever weapon they have, you need to bring one of your own up on stage, I guess.
Right. Your darts are no match for my kung fu. But you produced quite a few shows as well, isn't that correct? Don't you produce a show at the Comedy Cellar?
I do, yeah. It's called Hot Soup, long-running, independently produced comedy show in New York City that I do along with Gary Veeder and Mark Norman, two other great comics. And yeah, we've been doing it for a long time.
So I'm curious to know what goes into producing a show that not only is like a well thought out, like good kind of topic for a show, because I feel like every show has its own gimmick or whatever, but to a point where it's good enough to be at like the best comedy club in the world. I mean, this has to be like a honed down to a science comedy show.
Well, I'd say first thing, having good comics produce it and booking good comics on the lineup like is the essential thing. Also, we've done the show for like over like 12 years, 15 years, something like that. So I think we just had, a long runtime of building up an audience and a reputation. And yeah, I don't know that I necessarily agree that, like, I know a lot of shows do have themes, but like in general, I feel like every good stand-up comedian is coming to the stage with their own theme. And so when you try to put them in some other box or give them an assignment, like you got to write, 10 minutes about, car washes, and then we're all going to have the car wash show. It's like, okay, or I could just do material that's actually good that I've been honing and working on for months. That will probably be better for the actual audience. I feel like there's a lot of shows that they're sort of like created to be good on social media or good on the flyer or something like that, but it's actually a disservice to the people who actually show up. They would have gotten a better show if it had just been like a quote unquote regular stand-up show with good comedians booked on it. But overall, I'd say the biggest thing is having good lineups and funny people and putting on a killer show that makes people want to come back over and over again. So I'd say that's been the key to our success.
Very good point. So we have a show here, and this kind of segues into your newest special. We have a show out of Lafayette, Louisiana, called Stoned versus Drunk versus Sober, which
Yeah,
is
someone sent me a flyer about that.
yeah, dude, I've done that show. It's insane. It's one of the, I feel like, best show gimmicks without being a gimmick that there can be. I mean, I feel like it's really one of the best shows in the country, with the caveat being that sober almost always wins, ironically.
Yeah, I hear you.
Which is really weird. And I know that you found that out in this special, that sober most of the time wins, even though drunk is way more fun and stoned is way more cool. Sober, you don't stand a chance against it.
Yeah, comedy, it helps to have all your senses working properly. Comedy is very hard. And when you start doing it when you're impaired, it can be a little bit like trying to run a race with, one hand tied behind your back or something. So, yeah, I mean, for your listeners who don't know, I have a new special out. It's called Matt Ruby's Substance. And in it, I perform 4 sets, 1 high on weed, 1 drunk, 1 tripping on shrooms, and 1 sober. And there's documentary footage leading up to each day's set. And yeah, through this, stand-up special / documentary / experiment, you get a good window into each one of those substances and what they kind of do to you as a performer and a human being. And yeah, I think for sure, people ask me, which set was the best. And I think my favorite one was probably shrooms, but I think the best one was sober, and alcohol was definitely the worst. And I'm happy that in retrospect that sober was the best one, because it would really suck to then be going on stage sober every night and be like, oh, I'm not giving them my best. If I really cared about doing the best set possible, I would just get insanely drunk right now. And it's nice to know that, like, no. If you're the best at doing this when you're actually have all your wits about you. So, but yeah, it definitely was like a fascinating process. We didn't really know what we were making until we were, kind of done making it. But yeah, it came out together great. And yeah, it's getting good feedback and excited to have it out in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's an extremely good special, especially in a time now where not only is everything free on YouTube, but there's so much content out there that this is good and so different enough that if you pitch this to your friends, they'll be like, of course I want to watch someone do that. I mean, no, I don't think any other comedians really done that and filmed it before.
Yeah, I think to me, it was like, oh, this will be a fun idea. I didn't quite realize like it would be such a compelling hook to so many people, because like people are really like, oh man, that's such a cool idea. And like, I think to me, it didn't occur to me that it was like some wild thing to do, because like I had a friend of mine who, when I told the concept to, was like, well, yeah, that makes sense. You kind of have your 10,000 hours in every one of these things, which is true. Like I've been eating edibles and taking shrooms and drinking and doing stand-up all for a very long amount of time. And, it's like, to me, it's not some crazy, wild necessarily thing to do. Although I hadn't ever performed that high or that drunk or really at all on shrooms before. So I think that was sort of me. And also feeling like if I was going to film the special and do it, I really had to go for it. I couldn't just like have 2 beers or like a couple hits off a joint and be like, oh, watch me. Like I felt like, okay, if you're gonna do this concept, you really have to like be that thing. And so that was my goal while doing it, which was like a little bit scary, but I think, the end products, came out great. But along the way, it was a little bit like, wow, what the hell am I doing? I'm paying to have myself filmed being bad at the thing that I really want the world to think I'm good at, and be like, wait, what are you doing, dude? What's going on here?
So, have you ever done comedy on any substances that are the 4 that you filmed?
Good question. I don't think I have. I've done other substances in my life, but never, on stage.
What would you say is the most fun way to do crowd work out of those 4?
You know what it was? Like, I think stoned I've done with like not being as stoned and had a lot of fun. I mean, same with drinking. I think I just like during the special, it's so over the top. I was so high and I was so drunk that then your brain starts going into a different place where you start to like you're not in the right mindset to really be like quick and like engage people. It's just sort of like I would have good ideas while stoned, but like if it takes you like 30 seconds to figure out how to say a sentence, it's not really all that helpful. So but I think having my ideal personally would be like maybe like a little bit of an edible and a drink and then go on stage and like kind of be vibey but still have control of your faculties and stuff. And part of, like I said, part of the special was like, and I think for this you really have to go for it. So I was kind of in the red, or whatever the driving analogy is, where it's like, okay, this might not be the best way to run this engine.
Yeah, I think every comic has their perfect like recipe for they're getting their mindset right before going on stage, whether it's like I need 2 beers and a shot, or I need an exact amount. Most of the open micers around here, it's crystal meth. They just do a lot of crystal meth and then try to do stand-up comedy, and then it gets real horny real fast. They're just trying to get me too'd on stage.
Yeah, you just have teeth falling out during the opener. Yeah, it's got to be rough.
So what
dude, meth makes you so horny, man.
You wouldn't know because you come from the meth capital, Mississippi, where you live.
I do, and the person I'm talking about is also from here, so.
So what are the open mics like in New York right now? Is a bunch of new people trying stuff now, or is it sort of the same people coming back?
Or is all those jerk-offs moved to Austin already?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't attend a lot of open mics. I've thankfully graduated, past that, although, I did them for years. But yeah, I think there's like a constant scene bubbling up. Probably the thing that's changed the most since when I started and was doing open mics is how much like social media has shifted the game, and people can post clips, and people are able to build a following just through doing sketches or whatever else. So I don't know the answer to this, but I wonder how much are people kind of using that in a way that they used to use open mics to try to figure out your voice and what works and what doesn't. But I can't say for sure. I haven't been to a lot of open mics, but in New York in general, open mics are soul sucking, painful. There's no regular audience members. Everyone else there is just another comedian wanting stage time. And I'd say you'll have 2 people who are actually good, 10 people who just want to like hang out and get out of the house, and then 5 other people who are mentally ill. And that's usually the equation of open mics in New York City. So I think in the beginning, you got to kind of do it just to do it. But like eventually, if you can get in front of real audience members, you're going to learn a lot more than just doing an open mic.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like 5's a really low number.
Yeah, I mean, also,
I feel like
it depends on the room. It depends on the room. Like mentally ill people love a microphone. That's one thing comedy teaches you.
I will say that 100% of the comics I know are either like the most brilliant salt of the earth people you could ever meet, or just like the most diluted, conceited, like mentally ill individual that you've ever met in your entire life.
Yeah, and it's usually like I've been fortunate enough to get to perform, at places where I'm around, successful comedians. And I will say, when you get to the higher tiers of the profession, it's much more people who are like professionals and are treating it the same way like an athlete treats preparing for the playoffs or something like that. And I think there's this sort of like delusional / romantic notion that aspiring comedians or wannabe comedians have, that like, oh, comedians are all fucked up and we're wild and this and that. It's like, yeah, but like at the end of the day, like you need to get the job done. You need to turn over material. Nowadays, you need to be like your own social media expert and a bunch of other things. So this idea that you're just going to be some total screw up and be a successful comedian, it's not what I wind up seeing mostly.
Yeah. How do you feel about that, by the way? Like, what's the right amount to sell out to get your shit seen?
I mean, everyone's got their own personal dial to dial in of what are you wanting commercial success? Are you wanting fame? Are you trying to make art? Are you just trying to produce stuff you're proud of? I think everyone's. I mean, I guess the ideal would be like massive amount of fame, and also you're making exactly what you want to make. But sometimes it does feel like there's a trade-off. So I think trying to figure out what your priorities are is probably the first step to figuring that out.
So what's
sense.
what's your goal? Like, are you looking for the massive fame?
I mean, if I'm being honest with myself, I don't know if I'm destined for like some huge mainstream success in a way that like what I'm trying to make. I think I'm making stuff that is a little bit more intricate or complex or brainy or like kind of I like making stuff for people like me, and I don't like. I guess I'll put it this way. I think another comedian was telling me once about like, it's sort of like, imagine you're a chef. Like, what do you want? Do you want to be Arby's? Do you want to make fast food for everyone? Or are you trying to be like a Michelin star restaurant that's making sort of like a cuisine that's really special for the people in the room, but maybe you're not going to franchise that and be everywhere. And I'd say on that spectrum, I'm probably like a little bit more on the trying to make something that's I don't know, Michelin star is pretty highfalutin, but like I'm trying to make something quality, and like I don't know that who I am is going to be like Maniscalco or something like that. But if I can have a nice like little niche career with an audience that gets it and likes it and keeps coming back for more, and I'm able to make stuff that I'm proud of and sell tickets and keep doing what I'm doing, then for me that's enough.
Oh yeah, dude. I'm trying to be like a Waffle House with my comedy.
There you go. Like,
you just never know what you're gonna fucking see when you go to Waffle House.
Yeah, you just need a bunch of people fighting outside every one of your shows.
Hey,
let me tell you,
close,
Matt. The people fight inside at my shows.
I was gonna say you got the meth heads there already, so I feel like you're halfway to being the Waffle House of comedy.
Matt, I've been attacked 3 times doing comedy, in rapid succession, very close to each other.
How many times have you been attacked not doing comedy, though? We need a control group here.
Almost zero.
Almost zero.
I mean, I say almost because I don't, because I don't ever talk shit to people often. And of these 3 times that this has happened, I was only talking shit 1 time. The other 2 times, people just wanted to fist fight me because they didn't like my jokes.
All right, that's good motivation to write some new jokes, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm really bad at comedy. Anyways, Matt, what age did you lose your hair?
Oh, it's the first time I've been asked this question. I mean, it's I don't mean to break news to you, but it was actually like a slow process. So it happened over a span of years. I'd say probably about 10 years ago, it started to go, and I held on to it, off and on for another 5. And then about 5 years ago, I think I went for the shaved head, chrome dome.
That was going to be my next question, was when did you let it go? Because I feel like there's, in every bald person's life, there's the age they start losing it and the age they let it go because they understand it looks better.
Yeah, well, I mean, I started off taking that Propecia stuff, and then I was like reading the side effects, and one of the side effects is like difficulty sustaining an erection. And at that point, I was like, well, I'm taking this in order to attract women just so I can disappoint them. This doesn't feel like a very effective strategy. what am I doing here? So I figured, all right, maybe I'll just keep the erection and lose the hair. Maybe it would be the better path here.
I mean,
Which I mean, I guess that's the shaved head motto, really.
I know the feeling, you know. I mean, I started going bald when I was 19. I started to
Oh
see the
no.
signs.
See, I had a good run. I had a good couple decades. I had, shaggy hair. I was in a rock and roll band. So, which in some way I think maybe makes it even harder because, it's like, you don't even know what you're missing. I had this attachment to almost like it was my identity. So it's interesting now to be like, oh yeah, I'm a bald guy, and be like, okay, fine, I guess. But like, remember the good old days?
Oh, I know. I'm a drummer. I used to have hair almost down to my ass, and then it just started to go. And by the time I think I was 24 when I first started shaving my head, because I just said fuck it. Like I don't want to be that guy with the the Captain Picard ring
Yeah,
around his
it's better
head.
to get out ahead of in front of it. I hear you. But also at least this is like a short haired era. Like, how much would it suck to like in the '60s be going bald, and every single person around you has like the shoulder length hair? You're gonna be like, oh, I'm hip, but like I can't do that.
It actually was the '60s when Jason went bald.
Shut up.
Oh wow,
Yeah, but I mean, it's the thing is
shit.
like a bald head is not. It doesn't turn heads like it used to. Like, back in the 70s or, I imagine back in the 60s and 70s, you see a guy, walking around with a bald head. It's like that dude killed someone, like.
Yeah, I've kind of embraced I look like some like Russian nuclear arms dealer or like a Serbian nightclub owner or something like that. It's like, sure, all right, at least it's a look of some sort.
Yeah, I feel like I would definitely cast you as like John Malkovich's body double or something like that.
All right.
Yeah, we just got to stay away from the tracksuits.
Yeah. Ralphie
Yeah, right.
KGB. That's what you can call me.
Oh man, Matt, do you have any kids at all?
I don't.
How did you stay away from that for so long?
Well, I think within a long-term relationship, I am subtly inattentive until the point where the person who's in love with me eventually decides they don't want to sustain the relationship any longer. And then at that point, having kids is off the table, and then you get to start the whole process over again.
Are you sure we're not brothers?
So anything's possible. I mean, I think I know the answer, but these days,
because I'm
we'll
relating
have to
to
do an ancestry test or something.
I'm relating to a lot of stuff you're talking about this episode.
But yeah, I mean, having kids would be, I think, a fascinating experience. I'm not opposed to it. It just hasn't quite happened yet.
Oh yeah, man, I'd had one by accident.
Yeah. How's it going?
That's usually how it happens. I feel like in comedy, most comedians have kids just like shit.
Well, yeah. Also, you're in Mississippi, so I feel like that's how most of Mississippi has kids.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, because we're already in the house together, being brother and sister. It's only a matter of time before something happens. Like one of us has got to make a move.
Something in the water down here makes
not
people...
like you don't plan to have a kid with your sister. It just happens,
Something in the water down here, man, makes people super fertile.
I think it's meth. I think we found out.
It's
right?
meth.
Yeah.
Meth is a horny drug, bro.
I'm learning a lot from this podcast.
You didn't know that about meth?
No, I don't really know. Most of what I know about meth is like your teeth fall out and you start tweaking and stuff like that. But I haven't had a lot of personal experience with meth heads in my life. Other than my mom had a home healthcare worker who stole things from our house in order to fund their meth habit. But I can't say that I knew that person well.
Yeah, no, I mean there are a couple of comics around here who like there's a lot of them are strung out on coke, but I feel like there's a lot of comedians everywhere. But there's just a couple of specific comics who are on meth because they can only do 3 minutes of comedy at most. because they're just all over the place, going fucking 1,000 miles a minute, and it always ends with them just being like super creepy with any of the females that are in the audience, just trying to fuck while they're on stage, just being like, "Hey, you like this? You like all this?"
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know meth made you so horny. Maybe I'm on meth and I just don't know it. Huh. You're making me rethink everything. Because that's
your next
half my act that you just described. I'm like, maybe
yeah, right, dude. That's why I keep getting in so many fights at fucking shows.
I thought I had a unique voice that I was bringing to the stage, but all this time it's just been the meth. All right, good to know.
That should be your next special: is meth versus crack versus heroin versus
I mean, people have thrown out suggestions. I like because people are like, "Oh, you should do cocaine." Like, I tried to only do substances that I actually would endorse others to do, and so that narrowed the field down somewhat, because I didn't want to just be doing shit that I'm like, I don't want to do this, I don't do this, and I don't want anyone else to do this. I didn't want to be like glamorizing stuff in that way.
See, the next one you could do, you don't have to go so hard. I mean, you could do like NyQuil, CBD gummies, and I don't know, what else could you throw in there?
Dude, that's just what I do to get to sleep at night.
I know, that's the drugs for soccer moms. We'll call it that.
Yeah. So, Matt, we're getting close to the end of the episode here. Thank you so much for being on the show again. A cornerstone of our interviewing excellence
here it comes.
Really pinpoints around this one question that we've asked guests such as Jonathan Mangum from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Sean Patton has been asked this question. I think we've asked serious people this question, and I want a very serious answer, Matt Ruby. When was the last time you shit your pants?
I knew it was coming. Shit my pants. Oh boy. Maybe like I don't recall the last time I shit my pants. I did take a dump in the ocean a couple years ago, though, because I really had to. And I was like, there was no bathroom around, and it felt like, I don't know, isn't it part of nature? I was like, I don't think it's, I don't think it's going to make contact with anyone else. I don't know what else to do in this scenario.
Well, here's the question about that. When you're out in the water like that and you let it go, was it a one solid, dookie, or was it pretty watery? No, I think it, well, I mean, I didn't like grab it and examine it, but it felt solid. Because I was going to say, like, if it's like diarrhea, you're just making a cloud in the water that you're just floating in.
Yeah, I guess it's the rare instance where I could say I wish I had diarrhea, but I did not.
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, plastic straws are bad for the sea turtles. Imagine what you did to them.
I think shit is healthy. Whatever. We're human. We're animals. What do you think the fish and birds are doing? It just goes back into the planet. True.
I mean, fish poop in there. Exactly. Why not me? See, because I'm of the opinion that normal adult humans don't regularly shit their pants like Jacob does.
Yeah,
and I'm of the opinion that sometimes accidents happen.
Yeah, I feel like this might tie in with the meth conversation and the alcohol intake and like some other factors. I think, but yeah, like maybe work on that regulation. Just try to notice the patterns. What leads to the pants shitting, and maybe strive to avoid that in the future.
Well, I'll give you some background, Matt Ruby, since
I wish you want to know. Actually, no, I mean that's more words of wisdom for you to carry off into your own worldview.
But the weird part is that this has happened completely dead sober every single time.
Well, maybe you need to see a doctor.
That's what I said.
Like, I think you might
Mr. Matt Ruby, I live in Mississippi.
You might have irritable bowel syndrome, and it's gone undiagnosed, and you're started a podcast in order to get confirmation about the ailments that you're experiencing. And this is a very subconscious, subtle cry for help. And I'm here to tell you it's okay, and you should go get treatment for this.
Because this was not a one-time deal. This was like he shit himself like 3 weeks in a row. Because he was hosting
3 weeks in a row on a Tuesday.
Yeah, this is something to talk to a doctor about.
Yes.
But I live in Mississippi, Matt Ruby. I can't afford to go to the doctor.
Well, can you cross state lines? Can we? There's
I
probably
mean, I can, but if I go to Alabama, it'll be worse.
there's probably some abortion doctor looking for work now. You can just find one of them and just be like, "Hey, I know this isn't your sweet spot, but like I figure you could use the work. Can you cut me a deal?"
I mean, I'm pretty
Can
sure
you know
they
to get this out.
They work in the stomach region. They know what's going on down there.
Yeah, I don't have a womb, but I do have some issues happening, and there's some things. It's almost like the inverse of the normal abortion doctor job. It's like I've been letting go of some stuff, and I really want to hold on to it.
So and I think it's because of Jacob's horrible diet, like all the gas station food that he eats.
That sounds quite probable.
We've talked to some New York comedians before. What is the gas station food?
The slice. We get a slice pizza on every corner here, and $3.50 to $4.50. You get a really decent slice of pizza here, and when you're on the go, running between spots, it's a lifesaver.
So they don't really too many places. Do they have the 4-day-old hot dog rollers that they have
No, that's more your gas station in the South specialty. I mean, we have hot dogs, but like the New Yorkers, we don't let food sit around for that long. We'll have a hot dog, but it's sitting in gross, disgusting, boiling water on a street vendor's cart, but no rollers.
Here's where you're both wrong, and I've reiterated this 1,000 times on the podcast. It's not the 4-day-old rolling hot dogs that I'm getting. I'm going to the gas stations in the South that have a complete litany and buffet of Southern fried chicken and ribs. And there's one really good Chinese food gas station where they have fucking delicious wontons and General's chicken. I had it today. Egg rolls. I really have to poop. Not related to this at all. But I mean, I'm getting real food from these gas stations.
Well, if it keeps resulting in you shitting your pants, I might look into the quality of the food beyond just how it tastes going into your mouth.
I will refuse to always do that. I just had a friend text me, by the way, who said, tuning into your show, the first 5 to 6 seconds, you're talking about crapping your pants. What a great start.
Yeah. I mean, it's always nice to be invited into an environment where I can have the kind of conversations that it's tough to have anywhere else. So I appreciate it.
And the one question,
and you're completely welcome.
And the one question I always like to ask comedians like yourself is, what is your writing process like?
I mean, I'm always either carrying a notebook or writing ideas down in the Notes app on my phone. My favorite way to come up with joke ideas is to have conversations with people who are interesting or funny or make me think about stuff or bring up good things. And then when something does strike me that I'm like, oh, there might be something there, then to capture that, write it down, and then, maybe talk it out in my apartment or, kind of think of like, okay, what's the joke here? And then go on stage and try it. So I think, for me, it's a lot of trial and error, obviously, but like the more what I'm talking about on stage can be something that I also talk about off stage with people who I like and respect and enjoy talking to. I think that's just better for your act. And I think it's something the audience can sense, whether subconsciously or not, of like, oh, that it's coming from some sort of like authentic place of interest or what this person actually cares about. So I think the more I can do that, the better off it is. And, then a lot of times I'm also just throwing out stuff on social media and in my newsletter. I got a newsletter called The Rubes Letter at mattruby.substack.com. And I guess your audience would also, I got another newsletter called Funny How. That's at funnyhow.substack.com, all about the craft of stand-up. But I'm just sort of like throwing ideas out there all the time and just trying to get feedback on some level. And then when something's really resonant, try to bring it to the stage and keep honing it and, attack it. And it's sort of like being a good hitter in baseball. I feel like even when you're killing it, you're still only, 30% of the time are you actually right about stuff, and the rest of the time you're striking out or making an out. But like that's just part of the process.
Because I've had a lot of comedians.
What I heard.
Oh, go ahead, Jacob.
Oh, I was gonna say what I got out of that is that in your next special you're gonna have some really good material about shitting your pants.
Yeah, finally a comedian who's talking about that. You know, there's a lot of
Michelin star quality material, Matt Ruby.
Yeah, there's a lot of pent up demand for
It's
a
not,
comedian who's talking about shit in their pants.
that is not hack material at all.
Yeah. And then after that, maybe we'll get someone who's talking about masturbating. Wouldn't that be great if there was just a comedian? And then maybe about how men and women are different. I feel like these are the three things that comedy is just too scared to touch.
Women be shopping.
Well, I was just about to say, who else is going to let us know that the women be shopping?
There you go.
Because see, there's a lot of comedians out there that, upper level comedians that talk about you have to sit and write, for like an hour a day or something, stuff like that. And I can't do that. Like, if I try to sit down and force myself to write for an hour, it's going to be complete garbage. I just kind of wait for, moments of just getting struck by something and then writing as much as I can in that moment. And then hoping it happens
that's
again.
Garbage too.
Yeah.
I also think there's something to be said for talking out ideas, and you don't necessarily need to do that on stage. I think sometimes writing can be like talking into your phone or just sort of pacing around, outside and just talking about a topic for like 10 minutes and just let your mouth get out in front of your brain a little bit. And then every once in a while you'll be like, oh wait, that's actually kind of funny what just came out. And that can be a way to write too. I think sometimes there's this romantic notion that you can just go on stage and write all your material. And I think, especially in the early stages of doing stand-up, that's pretty tough. And so like the more you can figure out some way to, when you're alone, be crafting and creating material, the better off you're eventually going to be.
Yeah.
But also I think everyone's got their own, there's no one right way to do it. Everyone's got their own path. And so it's like, I think if something is just not clicking for you, then don't do it. But like try to figure out what is the thing that does click for you. And if you're getting results going that route, then great.
That's excellent advice for anybody listening at home who's an aspiring comedian. There's probably quite a few that are. Matt Ruby, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. Tell everybody about where they can catch all your dates and where they can watch your newest special and your previous specials.
Sure. MattRubyComedy.com is my website that's got everything listed. I'm on all your social media stuff at Matt Ruby Comedy. I have 2 stand-up specials on YouTube, youtube.com/Matt Ruby. Those are also at my site. And like I said, I got those newsletters, other stuff. So yeah, I think MattRubyComedy.com is the best starting point. And then anyone can like reach out to me via social or send me an email if you're curious about stuff, and I'll let you know. And I hope to be down Louisiana later this year, which is kind of close, right? So
let us know when you are, because that's very close to where we are.
There you go. And
we'll plug it, man.
I'm on the road and doing shows in New York all the time, so hope to see you out on the road. And Substance is that new special we talked about, and I'm proud of it and think it's funny and interesting. So YouTube, go there, watch Matt Ruby Substance, and then it's a good intro into the world of Matt Ruby. That's me.
Awesome.
All right, I feel like I've said my name enough times in the past 30 seconds.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming on the show, and it was a pleasure having you here.
Jason, Jacob, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So before we go, Jacob, what you got coming up?
Dude, if you guys aren't listening to Open Micers Podcast, which you wouldn't know because you're not listening to Open Micers Podcast right now, but hey, recommend it to a friend, because the guests we have coming up on this month are Brian O'Halloran from fucking Clerks, Mike Racine, a great fucking touring comic, the guys from WFU Podcast who are absolutely hilarious, and Abby Washuda, who is opening up or actually headlining on a bunch of shows with our buddy Neil Rubenstein. That's what you can expect this month on Open Micers Podcast. So go get in our Patreon for all that fun early access and whatnot.
Awesome. And I got a show coming up May 13th at Trax in Long Beach, Mississippi. It is Red Radio After Dark. It's going to be comedy, music, and burlesque. So go check out Red Radio After Dark on Facebook and go get your tickets right now on Eventbrite. gmail.com. And I think that's going to do it for this week. Let's walk out the door. If you would like to email us, you can email us at openmicerspodcast@gmail.com. We're at openmicers.com, Linktree/openmicerspodcast, and of course, our Patreon is patreon.com/ompodcast. For as little as $1 a week, get you all the extra stuff that we do, and early as well. So go ahead over there, and we will see you guys next week.
I'm about to get some good shit in my pants material.
There you go. Thanks, guys. I got to go eat, so
All right.
appreciate you having me, though.
Thank you so much, man.
Absolutely, dude. Thanks for sticking around.
Yeah.
Take it easy, guys.
You.
Bye.
And thank you for watching us on YouTube. And it will be available from now on if you want to go back and watch anything that you missed. And so we're going to be here every single week on YouTube, youtube.com/@jfunktastic. This is our new home. And come watch us here every single Monday night at 7:30 Central. And we will see you guys